It's cold. Make it stop. The rancher wrapped her in blanket. Then he noticed blood wasn't hers. The wind cut across the plains like a silver blade, sharp and relentless. Dust swirled in thin, ghostly spirals, chasing the low sun as it sank behind the jagged horizon. The ranch stretched wide, a sea of dry grass and scattered rocks, and the wooden fences creaked under the weight of the cold. It was early morning, but the chill had already set in, filling the air with a biting bite that made the bones ache. Eli Turner, a seasoned rancher with a weathered face and calloused hands, rode slowly along the northern edge of his land. His horse, a sturdy bay named Jasper, moved steadily despite the wind, ears twitching at every sudden sound. Eli pulled his coat tighter around his frame, the wool scratching against his neck, and squinted into the dim light. There was a faint trail in the dirt, a set of footprints that shouldn't have been there. They were small, delicate, like a woman's, and they led toward the abandoned barn at the far end of the property. Eli's curiosity nudged him forward, though unease tightened in his chest. The barn had been empty for years, left to weather and wind, its red paint chipped and faded. But now something had disturbed the stillness. He dismounted, his boots crunching on the frozen soil, and approached the wooden structure. The air smelled faintly of hay and smoke, a strange mix that set his mind on edge. Pushing open the barn door, it groaned in protest, revealing the dim interior. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching long under the beams of morning light that filtered through broken slats. Eli's eyes adjusted slowly, scanning for any movement. That's when he saw her, a figure huddled on the cold floor, shivering violently under a threadbare blanket. The woman looked frail, her hair damp and clinging to her pale face. She was wrapped tightly in the blanket, her teeth chattering with each breath. Eli felt a surge of concern. "Hey there," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "You all right?" She didn't answer at first, just curled tighter into the fabric as if trying to disappear into it. Her eyes, when they finally met his, were wide and unfocused, reflecting fear and exhaustion. Eli knelt beside her, taking care to remain calm and reassuring. He slid the blanket further around her shoulders, tucking it snugly to keep out the cold. "You're safe now," he said, his voice gentle. "Can you tell me your name?" The woman tried to speak, but only a faint whisper escaped her lips. Eli leaned closer, catching the words. Me, Mara," she stammered. "Mara," he repeated, nodding. "All right, Mara, you're safe here. Let's get you some warmth." Ellie lifted her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost fragile, and he wrapped the blanket tighter around her. His mind raced. Who could have left her out here in this cold, and why? But those questions would have to wait. First, he needed to make sure she was all right. He carried her toward the ranch house, the wind cutting through the barn walls and rattling the doors. Jasper followed closely, his hooves clopping on the frozen earth. Inside the house, the fire burned low, but it offered some welcome warmth. Eli placed Mara gently near the hearth and removed the damp blanket from around her shoulders, replacing it with a thick, dry one he found in the cupboard. As he worked, he noticed something odd. A small stain on the blanket, dark and reddish, caught his attention. He frowned. At first, he thought it was from Mara, but as he examined it more closely, unease settled in his chest. The color and consistency didn't match hers. It was too bright, too vivid. His heart skipped a beat. "Not hers," he muttered under his breath. Mara shivered again, and Eli rubbed her arms gently, careful not to disturb the blanket too much. He had to keep her warm, but he couldn't shake the thought of the blood. How had it gotten there? And why? His mind spun with possibilities, each one stranger than the last. Mara finally spoke again, her voice barely audible. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. Her words were cryptic, but there was no anger in them, only confusion and fear. Eli frowned, unsure what she meant. "You're safe here, Mara. Nothing's going to hurt you now," he reassured her, trying to keep his own anxiety in check. He handed her a cup of warm tea, which she sipped shakily. The liquid warmed her from the inside, and her shivers lessened slightly. Eli sat across from her, watching as she tried to steady her breathing. The ranch was quiet now, the wind having died down slightly, but he couldn't shake the sense that something unusual had happened. Mara's presence here, in the middle of nowhere, wrapped in a blanket that held someone else's blood, it was all too strange. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked gently. Mara hesitated, her eyes darting toward the window as if expecting someone to be outside. "I don't remember." she admitted finally. "I woke up somewhere cold. I don't know how I got here." Eli nodded slowly, trying to piece things together. He knew better than to press her too hard. Whatever had brought her here, it wasn't something simple. But he would protect her, at least until he understood the situation better. He decided to make her as comfortable as possible. He fetched a warm blanket from the bedroom, arranging pillows so she could rest. Mara leaned against them, closing her eyes as if the warmth of the house was a shield against the world outside. Eli glanced around the room, noticing small signs of life. The kettle on the stove, a few tools left on the counter, and a stack of hay near the door. He had lived alone for years, and this sudden intrusion of another life felt surreal. Hours passed quietly. Mara slept fitfully, murmuring in her dreams, and Eli kept watch, unable to shake the image of the blood-stained blanket. He wondered about the trail leading to the barn, about who or what had left her here, and yet, despite the mystery, there was a calm in the room, a fragile sense of safety that Eli clung to. By afternoon, Mara awoke fully, her eyes clearer but still clouded with uncertainty. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "You're at my ranch," Eli replied. "You were out in the cold, and I found you in the barn. You're safe now." Mara nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the blanket beside her. Eli noticed her glance, and he knew she was beginning to sense the truth about it. "It wasn't mine," she said softly, almost as if confirming his suspicion. Ellie frowned. "You mean the blood?" She nodded. "Yes." "I don't know how it got there. I wasn't hurt." "I don't understand." Eli sighed, running a hand over his face. There was more to this than a simple rescue. Something had happened, something beyond ordinary explanation, and he was at the center of it now. But he would keep her safe, at least for tonight. The rest, he decided, would come with time. As evening approached, Eli prepared a simple meal, and Mara ate quietly, the warmth of the house seeping into her bones. They didn't speak much, but there was a growing trust in the silence, a shared understanding that for now they were allies against the cold and the unknown. Outside, the sky darkened to deep indigo, the stars beginning to pierce the fading light. The wind had calmed entirely, leaving a stillness over the plains that was almost serene. Eli stepped outside for a moment, looking at the horizon, wondering what other mysteries the land held. Mara's presence was one, but he sensed there might be more, threads of a story that had yet to reveal themselves. He returned to the warmth of the house, checking on her one last time before settling near the fire. Mara was tucked in, the blanket snug around her, and for the first time since he found her, she looked almost at peace. Yet, in the back of Eli's mind, the blood-stained blanket remained, a puzzle piece that didn't fit anywhere he could see. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. Life on the ranch would never be the same again. Mara had arrived, and with her, a mystery that Eli was determined to unravel. Outside, the night stretched endlessly, silent and vast, and somewhere in the darkness, the plains whispered secrets that only time would reveal. The morning sun poured weak light across the plains, turning the frost on the grass into tiny crystals that sparkled like scattered diamonds. Eli Turner had been awake for hours, long before the light fully reached the ranch. He moved quietly through the house, brewing coffee and checking the barn, though nothing had changed outside. The footprints were gone, erased by wind and frost, leaving only a memory in the dirt. Mara slept peacefully for the first time since he had found her. Her face, usually pale and tense, now held a faint color, and her breathing was even. Eli watched her for a moment, feeling a sense of calm, though his mind churned with questions. Who had left her in the cold? Why was there blood on the blanket? And most of all, why had she said she didn't understand how it got there? The ranch was quiet, filled only with the sounds of Jasper moving in his stall and the distant call of a hawk circling above. Eli poured his coffee, carrying it carefully to the small table near the window. The warmth of the liquid was comforting, though it did nothing to ease the unease in his mind. When Mara awoke, the sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows across the floor. She stretched slowly, yawning, and looked around the room with wide eyes. "Good morning," Eli said softly, offering a warm smile. "Sleep well?" She nodded, brushing her damp hair from her face. "Better," she admitted. "I feel safe here." "You don't have to thank me," Eli replied. "It's my ranch. You were out in the cold. I couldn't just leave you there." Mara's eyes flicked to the blanket folded beside her. "It's still there," she said quietly. "The blood." Eli sighed. He had hoped she might forget it for now, focus on staying warm and rested. "Yes," he said, "I noticed. It's not yours, though. You weren't hurt. I'm not sure how it ended up on the blanket, but we'll figure it out." She frowned, biting her lip. "I remember waking up somewhere cold, then nothing. Then I was here. I don't know if anyone else was there." Ellie nodded slowly. He knew better than to push her. Whatever had happened, she couldn't remember it clearly. "All right," he said. "For now, let's get you some breakfast. You need strength." A small kitchen filled with the smell of sizzling eggs and toasted bread. Mara helped as much as she could, though her movements were careful and hesitant. Eli noticed that she seemed cautious of her own shadow, as if expecting it to move suddenly. There was a tension beneath her calm, a subtle alertness that told him her mind was still on edge. They ate quietly, sharing the warmth of the kitchen. Outside, the plains stretched endlessly, the wind soft now, but still cold. Mara gazed out the window, her eyes distant, and Eli wondered what thoughts ran through her mind. After breakfast, he suggested a walk. "You need to stretch your legs," he said. "The cold takes a lot out of you, even if you're resting." Mara hesitated, glancing toward the barn, then nodded. Together, they stepped outside, the air crisp against their cheeks. Jasper followed, whinnying softly as if welcoming Mara to the open plains. They walked slowly, Eli keeping a careful eye on her. The morning was calm, almost serene, but Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual had happened here. Mara seemed drawn to the barn, her gaze lingering on it as if it held answers she couldn't yet remember. "You don't have to go in," Eli said gently. "It's just a building. Nothing in there will hurt you." "I need to see it," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was determination in her eyes. "Maybe it will help me remember something." Eli nodded. They approached the barn together, its wooden walls gray and weathered. The door creaked as they pushed it open, sunlight streaming in through the cracks. Mara stepped inside slowly, her hand brushing the wall for support. Eli followed, standing close in case she needed reassurance. The barn smelled of hay and old wood, just as it had the day before. Mara's eyes swept across the floor, stopping at the spot where she had been found. She knelt slowly, running a hand over the cold dirt, as if trying to pull memories from it. "I don't know why I was here," she whispered. "It feels familiar, but I can't remember." Eli crouched beside her. "Sometimes memories come back slowly. Don't worry if you don't remember everything at once. That's okay." Her gaze fell on the blanket folded near the wall. She approached it cautiously, as if it were alive. Eli's heart beat faster. This moment could reveal something important. Mara picked up the blanket, holding it at arm's length. She stared at the dark stain, her lips parting slightly. Then, very carefully, she pressed a finger to it. Her face didn't show fear or pain, only concentration. "It's not mine," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I didn't touch it before. But somehow, I can feel it. It's connected to something." Ellie frowned. "Connected?" "Yes," Mara said. "I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's part of a story I don't fully know. But I can sense something important happened here." He didn't fully understand, but he had learned that Mara was extraordinary in ways he couldn't yet measure. Whatever had brought her to the ranch, whatever left the blood on the blanket, it was no ordinary accident. They left the barn, Mara carrying the blanket carefully. Back at the house, she laid it on a table, inspecting it closely. Eli watched her, impressed by the care she took, the quiet thoughtfulness of her movements. "You're very careful," he said finally. Mara smiled faintly. "It's important. I don't know why yet, but I feel like I need to be careful with it." Ellie nodded. He had learned long ago that some mysteries couldn't be rushed. Mara's instincts were sharp, and he trusted that she would guide him as much as he guided her. The day passed slowly, filled with small chores and quiet conversation. Mara helped Eli with feeding the animals, carrying water, and checking fences. Though her strength was still recovering, she moved with determination, and her presence brought a lightness to the ranch that Eli hadn't felt in years. As evening approached, a soft pink and orange glow spread across the sky. Mara sat near the fire, the blanket wrapped around her shoulders once more. Eli joined her, bringing a cup of tea and settling into a chair across from her. "You did well today," he said. "Even with everything that's happened, you kept going." Mara smiled faintly. "I want to understand. I want to know why this happened, why I'm here." Eli nodded. We will. We'll figure it out together. For now, focus on staying warm and rested. Tomorrow is another day. She looked into the flames, her eyes reflecting the flickering light. Do you think whatever left me there will come back? Ellie shook his head. I don't know. Maybe not, but even if it does, you're safe here. I won't let anything happen to you. Mara's eyes softened.
Thank you, Eli.
For everything. The night deepened, and the stars filled the sky like scattered lanterns. The ranch was quiet now, the wind long gone, leaving only the sound of fire crackling and Jasper breathing softly in his stall. Eli felt a sense of peace, though the questions lingered. He thought about the footprints, the blood, and Mara's strange connection to the blanket. Whatever had brought her here, it was part of something larger, and he knew that the days ahead would reveal more of that story, piece by piece. As Mara drifted to sleep, Eli stayed by the fire, lost in thought. The plains were silent, but he could sense a presence beyond the horizon, waiting, watching. He didn't know if it was friend or stranger, but he knew one thing. Mara was part of his life now, and together they would uncover the mysteries hidden in the cold, endless land. For the first time since finding her, Eli felt ready to face whatever came next. Mara had arrived unexpectedly, but her presence was a spark of warmth in the harshness of the plains. And as long as he could protect her, he would. Tomorrow, they would begin the search for answers. For now, the ranch was quiet, safe, and filled with the quiet strength of two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of ways. The next morning, a soft fog hovered over the plains, turning the horizon into a pale blur. Eli Turner was up before sunrise again, checking the horses and feeding the smaller animals in the pens. Jasper nickered softly as Eli approached, and the other animals stirred, their breaths visible in the crisp morning air. The ranch felt alive in the gentle quiet of the early day, and yet Eli's mind was focused on Mara. She was awake already, sitting at the small table by the window, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. The blanket was draped over her shoulders, still carefully folded in a way that seemed almost ritualistic. Eli watched her for a moment. Her eyes were thoughtful, distant, and her brow furrowed slightly as if she was trying to recall something just out of reach. "Good morning," Eli said softly, trying not to startle her. "Sleep well?" "Better. I dreamed again," she said, her voice quiet. "Dreams of places I've never been. I think they're trying to tell me something." Ellie pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Dreams can be strange guides. Maybe they're memories, maybe they're warnings. Either way, they're part of the story you're living now. Mara's eyes met his, a mix of determination and worry. "I just want to understand why I'm here, why the blanket, why the blood isn't mine. Everything feels connected, but I don't know how." He knew patience was important. Whatever had brought Mara to his ranch, whatever had left the blood on the blanket, it was clear that it was part of a larger mystery, and for now he would let her guide him with her instincts. After breakfast, Eli suggested they check the northern fence line together. "We can get some fresh air," he said, "and it might help you remember things if we retrace your steps." Mara agreed, and together they set out, Jasper following closely. The fog made the world feel quiet and secretive, and the footprints in the dirt had long since been erased by wind and frost. Yet Mara's steps seemed careful, as if she could sense the path her own feet had taken. As they walked, Mara spoke softly, more to herself than to Eli. "I think something happened here. Something important. I can feel it in the earth, in the air. It's like it left a mark that I can sense." Eli listened quietly. He wasn't sure if she meant it literally or if it was her intuition speaking, but he trusted her instincts. Mara had an unusual way of connecting with the world, noticing details he might overlook entirely. When they reached the barn again, Mara paused. "I need to see it one more time," she said. Eli nodded, following her inside. The barn smelled faintly of hay and earth, and the sunlight filtering through the cracks painted patterns on the floor. Mara knelt carefully where she had first been found, her fingers tracing invisible lines in the dirt. Eli watched her closely, sensing the importance of her actions. She rose slowly, holding the blanket in her hands. Her gaze lingered on the stain. "It's a story," she whispered. "A story left here for me to find. But I don't know the words yet."
Eli frowned.
"A story?" "Yes," Mara said. "I think the blanket, this stain, they are pieces of something bigger. A message. Something I need to understand before it becomes clear." He had no doubt Mara was extraordinary, even if he didn't fully understand it yet. He had spent years reading the land, learning its secrets, but Mara seemed to read something invisible, something beyond the ordinary. They returned to the house, where Mara laid the blanket carefully across the table. She examined it closely, her hands gentle, as if afraid of disturbing it. Eli watched her, fascinated by her focus. It was clear that the blanket held more than just a mysterious stain. It was a key to a puzzle he couldn't yet see. As the day went on, Mara and Eli worked on chores together. Mara helped feed the horses, stacking hay with careful precision. She checked the fences alongside Eli, her eyes sharp, scanning the horizon as if expecting to see something unusual. Eli noticed that she seemed more alert, more connected to the land than anyone he had ever known. During a break, Mara sat on the porch steps, the blanket draped around her shoulders. "I think I remember something," she said quietly, almost to herself. Not fully, but a feeling. A place. Cold. Wind. And then warmth. And then someone helping me. Ellie leaned against the railing, listening. "That sounds like your memory returning. Little by little it will come back?" Mara nodded. "Yes, but it's not just about me. The blanket, it's part of something bigger. I can feel it. Someone wanted me to find it. Someone wanted me to know something." Eli's mind raced with possibilities, but he didn't interrupt her. He had learned to let Mara speak when she was ready. Whatever had happened, she needed to process it in her own way. As afternoon approached, Eli suggested they explore the ridge beyond the northern pasture. "Sometimes seeing the land from higher up helps you notice things you might miss on the ground," he said. Mara agreed, and they rode Jasper up the gentle slope. From the top, the ranch spread out like a patchwork quilt. Fields, fences, and the barn far below. The wind was stronger here, carrying the scent of distant forests and the faint trace of water from a creek beyond the ridge. Mara dismounted, her eyes scanning the horizon. "It's familiar?" she whispered. "Not from here exactly, but I've seen something like this before. Somewhere else, maybe in my dreams." "Your dreams again?" "Yes," she said. "They're trying to tell me something. I can feel it. And the blanket, it's connected to the feeling." Eli stayed close, offering support. "We'll figure it out, Mara. Step by step." They explored the ridge slowly, Mara's senses alert to every sound, every movement of the grass. She paused frequently, touching rocks or tracing the bark of a small tree with her fingers. Each touch seemed purposeful, deliberate, as if she were gathering pieces of an unseen map. Finally, Mara stopped near a cluster of stones partially covered by frost. She knelt, brushing away the ice and dirt. "Here," she said, her voice filled with awe. "Something happened here. I don't know what, but this is part of it." Eli examined the stones with her, noting small scratches and marks on the surface. "Could be animal tracks," he suggested. Mara shook her head. "No. This is different. It's intentional. Someone placed these stones. Someone left a message, maybe even a warning. And it's tied to the blanket." Eli nodded slowly. He had no doubt that Mara could sense things he couldn't. The connection between her, the blanket, and the marks on the ridge was real, even if he couldn't fully explain it. They returned to the ranch as the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the plains in deep golds and oranges. Mara carried the blanket carefully, and Eli could see the determination in her eyes. She was growing stronger, more confident in her abilities, and more connected to the mysteries surrounding her. That evening they sat by the fire once more. Mara examined the blanket in detail, tracing the stains and folds as if reading a hidden text. "I think I understand a little more now," she said quietly. "The blanket? It's a map. Not of places exactly, but of events. Something happened here, something important. And someone left it for me to find." Ellie listened, fascinated. "A map of events?" "Yes," Mara said. "Not everyone can see it. Not everyone can feel it. But I can. And I think if I keep following the signs, I'll understand why I was brought here, why I found the blanket, and what I need to do next." Ellie nodded, feeling both awe and respect. Mara was extraordinary, and the mysteries surrounding her were growing by the day. Whatever had brought her to his ranch, it was clear she had a purpose, one he was determined to help her discover. As night fell, the ranch was quiet once more. The stars blanketed the sky, the cold air sharp and still. Eli looked at Mara, who was now resting with the blanket beside her, her eyes heavy but her mind clearly active. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring more discoveries, more pieces of the puzzle, and together they would follow the trail, step by step, until the story revealed itself fully. The night held a calm, a fragile peace, but Eli sensed that the world outside was watching, waiting, holding secrets that only Mara could uncover. And he was ready to stand by her. Through every mystery, every discovery, and every challenge that Leahea morning arrived slowly over the plains. The light pale and soft, casting a gentle glow across the frost-covered land. Eli Turner rose before the sun, as usual, checking the animals and the fences, though his mind was already focused on Mara. She had slept fitfully during the night, turning often under the warmth of the blanket, her expression thoughtful, even in dreams. Ellie brewed coffee in the kitchen and set out a small breakfast. The fire crackled in the hearth, sending tiny sparks into the air. Mara joined him at the table, the blanket draped around her shoulders like a shield. She sipped tea quietly, her eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and curiosity. "I think today is the day I need to understand," she said softly. Eli looked at her intrigued. "I'm ready to follow the signs, to see where the blanket is leading me." Eli nodded. "Then let's go. We'll figure it out together." They prepared for the day, riding Jasper out across the northern plains. The frost glistened under the sun, and the cold air was crisp but invigorating. Mara held the blanket carefully, almost reverently, as if it were a living thing guiding her steps. She stopped occasionally, listening to the wind, touching the earth, and noting the patterns of rocks and grass. "I can feel it more clearly now," she said. "The blanket, it's showing me the story of the plains. It's a history of the land, of events that happened long ago. And there's a message hidden within it, something someone wanted me to find." Eli stayed close, observing her actions. He couldn't fully understand her abilities, but he trusted them. Mara's instincts had led them to the ridge before, and now they were guiding her to something new. After an hour of careful riding, they reached a secluded part of the ranch that Eli rarely visited. The ground here was uneven, covered in low shrubs and stones. Mara dismounted and knelt, brushing away frost and dirt. Her eyes widened as she traced patterns in the earth. "Look," she said, pointing to a cluster of stones arranged in a circle. This is a marker." Someone placed it intentionally. "It matches the pattern in the blanket." Eli leaned closer, examining the stones. The arrangement was precise, almost like a symbol, simple yet deliberate. "You think someone left this for you?" he asked. Mara nodded. "Yes, not for anyone else. It's like a guide, a puzzle that only I can solve. And now I understand why I was brought here, to follow these signs and learn the story." Together they moved carefully from marker to marker, each step revealing a new pattern in the land that matched the folds and stains of the blanket. Mara's connection to the cloth was extraordinary. She could feel the history embedded in it, the movements of people, the changes in the land, and the purpose behind each mark. Hours passed as they traced the final lines of the patterns, moving closer to a small clearing at the edge of the ranch. The sun was high in the sky and the cold was less biting, though the frost still clung to the ground. Mara paused in the clearing, holding the blanket over the stones at the center. "This is it," she whispered. "This is where the story ends, or begins." The stones formed a circle around a small depression in the ground. Mara carefully folded the blanket, pressing it over the pattern. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the cloth, breathing slowly and deliberately. The air seemed to shift. A gentle warmth radiated from the blanket, spreading through Mara's fingers and into the earth beneath them. Eli watched in awe as her connection to the land became almost visible, an energy subtle but unmistakable moving through her and into the surroundings. Then Mara opened her eyes. "I understand now," she said. "The blood wasn't meant for harm. It was a marker, part of the story. Someone left it so I could find the right path. I wasn't hurt because the message wasn't about me." Eli blinked, absorbing her words. "So it was a guide, not a warning?" "A guide, and the blanket helped me read it. I can feel the events, the people who were here before. It's a history written in the land and preserved in the cloth. Someone wanted me to know the truth of this place, and now I do." Ellie smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration washing over him. Mara had discovered the purpose behind her mysterious arrival, and the cold, endless plains held their secrets no longer. Mara carefully folded the blanket, placing it over the stones one last time. "It's complete," she said. "The story is preserved, and the message is clear. I can rest now knowing I've understood what needed to be known." Eli helped her to her feet, feeling the shift in her energy. The tension, the worry, and the fear of the unknown had lifted. Mara's connection to the blanket had revealed the truth, and she seemed lighter, freer, and more at peace than she had since arriving at the ranch. They rode back slowly, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the plains. The wind was gentle, carrying the faint scent of distant forests and the sound of birds returning to their nests. Mara held the blanket with care, her mind calm and focused. Back at the ranch, they settled inside. Mara draped the blanket over a chair near the fire, gazing at it with reverence. "I think I understand why it was left for me," she said. "I was meant to learn, to connect with this place, and to preserve its story. Now it's my responsibility to honor it. And you will. You've done well, Mara. You followed the signs, trusted your instincts, and found the answers you were seeking." She smiled, a quiet, serene expression. "Thank you, Eli, for helping me, for trusting me, for keeping me safe while I figured it out. I couldn't have done it alone." Eli's eyes softened. "You didn't have to. That's what the ranch is for. Safety, warmth, and a place to find yourself. I'm glad you're here." The evening grew quiet, the fire crackling softly, and the stars emerged once more in the darkening sky. Mara sat near the fire, the blanket beside her, her mind at ease. Eli watched her, feeling a deep respect for the young woman who had come into his life under such mysterious circumstances. Outside, the plains were calm, the frost glittering under the light of the stars. The wind had gone, leaving only the quiet hum of the night. And for the first time since Mara's arrival, Eli felt a sense of true peace. The mystery had been solved, the story understood, and the blood-stained blanket had revealed its purpose. A guide, a history, and a message of understanding. Mara leaned back in her chair, the warmth of the fire washing over her. She traced the edges of the blanket gently, her fingers moving over the fabric as if thanking it for the guidance it had provided. "It's all connected," she whispered. "The land, the people who came before, the story, everything is part of a bigger whole. And now I can carry it forward." Helly nodded, smiling softly. He had seen many things in his life. Storms, wild animals, droughts, but nothing as remarkable as this. Mara had brought something extraordinary into the ranch, a connection to the land and its history that he could feel, even if he didn't fully understand. That night, they sat together by the fire, sharing tea and quiet conversation. Mara spoke of her dreams, of the images she had seen, and how they had guided her to the blanket and the markers on the land. Eli listened, fascinated by her insights and grateful for her trust. By the time they retired for the night, the ranch was quiet, safe, and filled with a sense of completion. Mara lay in a warm bed, the blanket folded carefully beside her, and Eli watched over her, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The mystery that had arrived with her was solved, and the connection between the girl and the land had revealed itself fully. Outside, the wind rustled the grass gently, and the stars twinkled as if celebrating the revelation. The plains were no longer just cold and empty. They were alive with history, stories, and the warmth of understanding. Mara had arrived in the world at the right moment, and the ranch had become the place where history and present met in quiet harmony. Eli finally sat back in his chair, sipping the last of his tea. He looked at the fire, reflecting on the day's events. Mara's arrival had changed everything. Her courage, her intuition, and her connection to the blanket had brought life, warmth, and mystery to the ranch. And for the first time in many years, Eli felt a sense of wonder at the possibilities the future could hold. The blanket, now resting safely, held its secrets, its story preserved for anyone who might come after Mara. But for now it was enough to know that the mystery had been understood, the story complete, and the girl who had been found in the cold was finally at peace. As the night deepened, Eli stepped outside for a moment, looking at the vast plains under the starlight. The air was crisp, the world silent, and he could feel the calm that Mara had brought to the land. Tomorrow the ranch would return to its routine, but today had changed everything. Mara had discovered her purpose. The blanket had revealed its story, and the plains, though still cold, were now filled with warmth and understanding. Eli turned back toward the house, a quiet smile on his face. The ranch was alive with more than animals and land. It was alive with history, discovery, and the extraordinary bond between a girl, a blanket, and the vast, endless plains. And as he closed the door behind him, he knew that whatever mysteries the future held, he and Mara would face them together, guided by trust, courage, and the stories written in the land itself.